just point to the logo on my chest and tell them, Slammy, ego, Slammy, ego, Slammy, ego, Slammy, hey. Hit it up hard, hit it with a strike. From the national anthem to the bottom of the night. Amen. Slammy, ego, Slammy, ego, Slammy, ego, Slammy, hey. You already know what's up. What's that? Another home run. We should know the job ain't done till we hold that trophy up. Hey.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Talking Friars here on this Tuesday night. The winter meetings are happening now in Orlando, Florida, and the Padres, they are making some small moves, acquiring guys we've never heard of, and they are putting their best players out there to be available on the trade market, according to Kevin Acee. So things are going great. But just going to give some thoughts on what's been happening here the last few days and answer any questions that are live in the chat. So thank you all for the time. But yeah, let's just start off with Kevin Acee's reporting about AJ Preller trying to go big here at the winter meetings, or not even just at the winter meetings, but in the off season in general. Two sources familiar with the Padres discussions, this was an article yesterday, I believe, by Kevin, said AJ Preller is shooting big. One source said the Padres are working multiple fronts that could result in deals that rival the massive trade in which they acquired 4 major leaguers in exchange for Juan Soto and Trent Grisham at the winter meetings 2 years ago. Another source said Preller's plans coming to fruition would make the deals he made at the past 2 trade deadlines pale in comparison. What were those 2 deals? As a refresher, there was Mason Miller that was acquired. And then in 2024, there obviously were deals to improve the team there as well. I just think the winter meetings obviously is a time that you're going to see these rumors, these types of things thrown out there. Kevin Acee is doing his job, which is trying to find information about what's going to be happening with this team, writing about it, creating traction for the UT, his stories, all that. And so, yeah, of course, this sort of stuff's going to come out. If Kevin Acee, though, were to report, or other reporters, whether it be Dennis Lin or whoever, if they were to report every rumor that they heard or the big names AJ Preller is trying to go for, we would probably hear about hundreds of those. I mean, because what it sounds like is AJ Preller is someone that doesn't stop working, and he will not close out any situation because he wants to see what will it take to acquire player A, what will it take to acquire player B, what could we get back if we let go of player A, player B to this team, and possible 3-way deals, or if I land this player, then can I land this player because I got a certain player back, right? Or if I land this player, now I'm confident I can land these players because landing this player, he's a very impactful player, a big player. So if we get him, then might as well keep going and go all in, because why would you just stop there? So there's just so many, and I'm talking about Mason Miller, obviously, at last year's trade deadline when we're talking about that there. So let's just go through this paragraph here about working multiple fronts could result in deals that rival the massive trade, the Soto and Grisham deal there at the winter meetings 2 years ago. Deals, I think, is a key word there. Not deal, deals. So it could be a 2-part thing where we see the result and it's like, oh, the Padres acquired big name player, whoever. But maybe they didn't acquire that player in one deal. Maybe it took acquiring another player to then flip or get some sort of depth somewhere that you could trade another player that's on your team right now because you just got a player that plays that position to go get someone else, because that team that you get for the second deal that you make, they're interested in the player that you just acquired, or a player that was on your team that plays a position that you just acquired depth for in the previous deal. So there are certain things to this where it's like it's a big puzzle that could be worked out. by AJ, by his staff. Still no extension for AJ Preller, by the way, and we're not going to get one this week, obviously. That's the last thing that's on his mind, and rightfully so. But I think John Seiler did speak to the media, or at least to Kevin, earlier this week about, and it was pretty much he does expect an extension still to be done, but AJ Preller has more pressing things on his plate right now. He is under contract through 2026. So he's just going to keep doing his job. So maybe that's a spring training thing. Maybe that's a let's wait till the season's already started and it's April, where there's less transactional things, possibilities going on. Maybe you wait till after the trade. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Another source said Preller's plans coming to fruition would make the deals he made at the past two trade deadlines pale in comparison. So his plans pale in comparison. So would that be landing Tarek Skubal? Like, I'm trying to think of names here where it's like, yeah, that would pale in comparison to landing Mason Miller. Right? Or are they talking about dealing a certain big name player that's on this team right now, which would be Fernando Tatis Jr. is, I think, the name that a lot of Padres fans go to when you read these rumors about the Padres going big and maybe there's a huge trade going on. Trading, sorry, I'm just reading some stuff here. If there is truth, Kevin says here, if there is truth to the scuttle that the Padres are listening to offers for Nick Pivetta, it is one of the more glaring examples of the fact that Preller virtually rules out virtually nothing and explores virtually everything. Preller says it's a time of year where teams are calling you, you're calling teams. You've got to be open-minded to like, hey, is there a better fit or a better way to build a roster? And so this blockbuster that could come, or would it be a couple blockbusters, or would the two deals add up to being a huge blockbuster, or three deals, or whatever it would be? I think the big pressing thing is, would it include Fernando? And there's obviously been talk about the Padres eventually going to need to consider trading Fernando because you're not moving Manny's contract. You're not moving Xander Bogaerts' contract. You're not moving Darvish, Musgrove, Cronenworth maybe, but probably not. Nando's the most appealing. I mean, Merrill, you're not moving because of the friendliness of that contract, right? But should we mention Jackson Merrill as part of a blockbuster? I think it would be stupid if you're the Padres to trade Jackson Merrill with the contract that you got him under. And also trading Fernando seems kind of stupid. He's one of the more talented players in the big leagues. I know it's a big contract, but if the guy can stay healthy, like, it actually is not a bad contract. And I think if Fernando was made available, like, there would be teams lining up around the block to go acquire Fernando Tatis Jr. What team wouldn't want to have Fernando Tatis Jr. on their team? The talent that guy has. But no, I just don't see. I'm just having a hard time figuring out what this blockbuster deal would be. I'm having a hard time of figuring out what deal would be made that would make the past two trade deadlines pale in comparison. Because acquiring Mason Miller, that's a pretty darn big trade. You're going to make a trade that's going to be way bigger than that? How? It's going to be a player coming in? How are you going to do that? What names are out there that it's like, oh yeah, that's a bigger name? Because 2024, if I remember correctly, that was a rise. No. A rise was much earlier in the season. That wasn't before the deadline. But I'm just thinking, like, names that I've seen out there, Jaron Duran, but I kind of like the outfield situation that you're in. Tarek Skubal, if you're the Tigers, that seems kind of stupid to me. When you're trying to build, don't you want to build around Tarek Skubal? Ketel Marte with the D-backs. Would you have Cron play first? You have Marte play second? Would the D-backs trade Marte within the division? And how much would the Padres have to give up to get Ketel Marte? And who would they be giving up? I was listening to Section 1904 today, and John Gennaro, I think, floated Manny out there. And I'm like, he was saying the Marlins, and I'm just like, what are we talking about here? But I just don't see the Padres trading Fernando. I don't see the Padres trading Manny, obviously. They're not going to trade Xander. I could see them trading Jake Cronenworth, like they are shopping Jake Cronenworth. But that's a deal involving Crony that deal would pale in comparison. It would be, it would be huge. Obviously, Padres fans, the connection we have to Crony and his place in Padres history and the amount of years that he's been on the team and all that, of course. One of my favorite players. But the way that it's worded here from Kevin, to me, is just like, no, this is like Fernando. Or like a huge player that would be involved here. But maybe it's not one of those guys, and maybe it's a huge name player that's on another team somewhere that I'm not thinking of. So there was that. Then Kevin today writes, the Padres are fielding calls on virtually every one of their healthy back-end relievers, which includes Mason Miller, Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, and David Morgan. Those four plus Jason Adam, who's expected to be able to pitch off a mound again sometime during spring training after his September surgery to repair a quad tendon tear, comprised the core of what was Major League Baseball's top bullpen for most of 2025. But then, obviously, goes on to say Padres, they don't seem inclined to deal from their strength. And Preller's already talked about this before. Why would you make two areas mediocre? They already have one that's mediocre in the rotation. Why would you make the bullpen mediocre as well? Now, his point wasn't trading from the bullpen, but making guys starters. Why would you make two areas mediocre? Just have a great area and then try to strengthen the mediocre one, right? And I agree with that. I don't want Mason Miller being a starting pitcher. I don't want Adrian Morejon being a starting pitcher. I don't want Jeremiah Estrada being a starting pitcher. And David Morgan is the one where I'd be like, maybe try it, but I thought he had some really good moments in the bullpen, and he was in that circle of trust for me in the bullpen. So, yeah, I want them to all just be in the bullpen in 2026, sorry. Fielding calls, though, that's AJ Preller's job. So, if any Padres fans are out there that are panicking about their fielding calls on Mason Miller, I know he's under contract for a while. I know they had a huge trade. Obviously, they traded Leo DeVree in that deal. So you don't trade Leo DeVree just to trade Mason Miller when he's going to enter 2026 as your best reliever. That's the Padres' area of strength. Why would you trade the best part of it? You acquire him to be in pennant races for years and years and years, especially with that contract that he's under. I think it's through like 2029. So, a couple years down the road with arbitration and all that, like that, maybe that's different. But now that's not the time to trade him. But fielding calls to me is just like Preller answering the phone. He's not going to just shut down another team if they call about Mason Miller, which, like, that's his job, is to be open to all those possibilities. Being open to Mason Miller being traded and being open to Fernando being traded, though, are two different things. And you could say, well, Ben, that's AJ's job to listen on Fernando as well. Fernando is an everyday player. He is a big reason why fans show up to the ballpark, and I know that's not AJ Preller's job is to think about what sells tickets. That's not his job. But what would happen to this city if they traded Fernando Tatis Jr.? I don't know how he would survive that. You better be getting back. I don't even know who. If you're trading Fernando Tatis Jr., what would make Padres fans be like, you know what? Yeah, that's a good deal if we trade Fernando. What would we have to get back? I don't care if it's a top prospect. That's not going to do it. I don't care if it's multiple top 5 prospects in all of Major League Baseball. That's not going to do it. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Bryce Harper. I mean, what are we talking about here? So I just don't see how that's going to happen. So for with Nando's situation, I would like AJ to just come out here and say, yeah, he's not available. He is untouchable. Because whenever that's brought up, it feels like inside the organization, that's all they say is like emphatically, he's unavailable. We're not trading him. So why can't AJ just come out and say that? Is it because what if he ends up trading Fernando, then he looks dumb? Like, the dude lies all the time. GMs in baseball lie all the time. They don't have to tell us the truth. But here's this clip on MLB Network. He was on MLB Tonight. Was this today? Maybe today.
AJ Preller, you're always a man of mystery here at the winter meetings. I just read the Kevin Acee article. What are your thoughts on hearing that you're shooting big?
I mean, I think it's the time of year where, you know, all front offices, and Rick knows you're in these rooms and you have all kinds of ideas and thoughts flying, and 99% of them don't come to fruition. So I think for us, we try to be prepared. You know, we feel like we have a good feel for what our team needs and our club needs. And some years we've made moves at the meeting, some years we haven't. You know, ultimately there's a lot of time between now and spring training, and you know, we've had some years where we've been doing press conferences in Peoria, you know, for Machado, or last year for Nick Pivetta, and pulling off trades later for Dylan Cease. So we'll see where it all plays out.
Are there any untouchable players on your roster?
Yeah, I mean, again, like anything, you want to listen. I mean, you want to be able to listen to hear what people are going to say. That's the only way to find out more information and hear what's out there. But we like our team. You know, I mean, we've had a club that's been in the playoffs now back-to-back years, and a team over the last, you know, four out of the last 6 in the playoffs with a chance to win the World Series. And you only do that with really good players on the field. We've got a great foundation, a great group. And, you know, ultimately it's nice to go into these meetings looking to fill a few different specific holes and not, you know, looking to revamp the whole thing.
I'm a big body language guy. I was watching when you put that front end, and I was trying to read him because he was looking at nothing, no reaction to it.
So what does that mean?
No, I'm saying we're not going to know. He could be.
I'm a big body language. I watch in the morning when you do that D-Rose snorkeling thing, and you got you know, some of that stuff you pull off. And I've got different thoughts for you based on some of the stuff I watch. So,
all right, well,
I'm watching you too, D-Rose.
All right, let's go.
That's funny because anyone knows D-Row, and Preller's talking about MLB Central and the D-Row deep dives there. So AJ he's refusing to come out and say that Manny's untouchable, Tatis is untouchable. Maybe he truly believes that those guys are not untouchable, and yeah, we can trade those guys. But Nando has a no trade clause. Manny, I'm pretty sure, has a no trade clause. Even Crony has a limited no trade clause, so they are untouchable unless they allow it, you know? So, and AJ could literally, like, even if the Padres are open to trading Fernando next year or 2 years from now, but they're totally not now, then he can just say, yep, he's untouchable. Fernando is one of the best players in the league. We value him. We want to win a championship, and we think that he can be a huge part of that, and we're building around him. We're building around Manny. We're building around Merrill. Like, this is the core of the team. And then a couple years down the road, you trade Nando, and then people, want to put this comment back in your face, and you just say, well, I was answering the question about right now. And at that point in time, yes, Nando was untouchable. And you would be able to walk away from that. Like, I don't know if it's a perception thing. Like, who cares what other people think about whatever you say, right? So I maybe I shouldn't care what AJ's saying, and I shouldn't care that he's just not going out there and saying that Fernando's untouchable. Like, of course there are untouchable guys on this team, you know? So deep down, like, I know that they are untouchable, so why does it matter? But when someone goes out there and he's just lying to us, he'd probably say, I'm not lying, I'm just not saying yes or no. Because in that answer, what he did was be like, well, the only way to learn things is you got to listen and take calls. But he didn't say yes or no. So that's his way of kind of getting around that. But yeah, so that's what we got here is Preller being Preller and shooting big at the winter meetings. Who knows what exactly that means? Maybe that's people inside the org that are talking to Kevin and putting names out there to Kevin. But then they say, you can't put this in print. You cannot, put these words out there or these names out there of these guys. So Kevin instead then goes, oh, that player. And I'm just making up this name. But, oh, Derek Skubal? Oh, yeah, that would qualify as a blockbuster. And so that's how he writes it, that, yeah, this would qualify as a blockbuster. This would pale in comparison to a Mason Miller trade, maybe he's hearing about Ronald Acuna Jr. or he's, I don't know. But yeah, that's, to me, I feel like that totally could be going on. And this is total speculation. But like Kevin talking to people in the organization or an agent of a player, so that this agent knows, and there are big name players that are mentioned to Kevin, but then he's told by these people that you can't put these names, you can't link these names to the Padres. So you can write it another way, but do not say these guys' names. And maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But it's interesting. There's always something going on with the Padres. There's always some big, it always seems like it. There's always some big name that's attached to the Padres, or there's always some big potential thing that could happen with the Padres. So we'll see if a big name ends up showing up at Petco Park in a Padre uniform. Big names is not who the Padres have brought in this offseason. I'll tell you that. Dason Acosta, 1-year contract. Never heard of this dude. I'm not going to act like I know anything about this dude. I saw that he was with the Nats organization, hadn't pitched in the big leagues before, had a pretty good ERA last year. And it's obviously a project. The Padres feel like they could get more out of this guy. Put him in there with Ruben and Ben Fritz, and maybe Greg Stammen can help out. And maybe this can be an impactful bullpen piece. Just like, what's the dude's name? Ends with a cock as the last name. I don't. Ty Hancock, is that the guy's name? I've already forgotten. But these are the moves the Padres are making. Dason Acosta, Ty Hancock, if that's the guy's name. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And then Kyle Hart, bringing him back. So that's what's going on with the Padres. Meanwhile, the Phillies are re-signing Kyle Schwarber, giving him $150 million. They are one of their other competitors in the National League, the Dodgers. They signed Tanner Scott to a big deal. He flops. Oh, let's just go sign Edwin Diaz. Oh, and we're actually going to be connected to Robert Suarez as well. Must be nice to have a television deal. And oh, by the way, you got the Padres ownership situation and a potential sale and all that. Seems like the earliest that would happen would be the spring of 2026. And we can obviously just throw out random big name people who we don't know if they have any interest in owning the Padres. But yeah, we can just throw those names around until then. I don't think I've really hit on the Padres considering trading Nick Pivetta. Dennis Lin did write this to start off the winter meetings. The Padres need rotation help. They also need to rebalance their payroll. And while a deal involving Nick Pivetta is not considered likely, they're willing to entertain trade interest in their top starter. But that's also AJ's job. Like, of course, you have to listen because that's the only way that you know if it's worth it to trade this person or not. Is the return going to be better than just having Nick Pivetta be on the team? And the answer to that is no. Probably. Because right now, the reliable starter that you have is who? Nick Pivetta. Because after that, as much as I love Joe Musgrove, he's coming back from surgery. Haven't seen him pitch in a while. You got Randy Vasquez, who had some really good moments this year, but not an ace. Darvish is out. Who knows if he'll pitch again? J.P. Sears, Kyle Hart, Matt Waldron. That's not a rotation where you're like, yeah, that can get us to a World Series. But again, it's December 9th. Like, I'm not going to react too much to that. There's a lot of time before the season starts. There's a lot of time before next year's trade deadline. And AJ gets a lot of work done at that time. So I don't think it's time to be panicking about that right now. Nando and Manny will be playing, by the way, for Albert Pujols, which will be interesting. They're going from Craig Stammen, the guy who actually got the managing job, to the guy who finished second or third, whoever, depending upon who you talk to, for the Padres managing job. So that'll be interesting. Ty Adcock, by the way, was that guy's name that I was not remembering. Ty Adcock. And Dason Acosta. Two guys that could be at the bottom of the Padres bullpen. Maybe they would pitch in El Paso. We shall see. Obviously, projects for the Padres. This is bugging me. Why am I forgetting the big Padres offseason trade in 2024? Or was it? No, it wasn't the offseason. It was the deadline. It was what Kevin wrote. Trade deadline 2024. Oh, yeah, they added Tanner Scott. They added Jason Adam. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So for it to be bigger than adding Tanner Scott, adding Jason Adam, adding Mason Miller, how is it bigger? Probably by trading Mason Miller. I don't think trading Nick Pivetta would be big, but I don't think that would pale in comparison to those deals. When I think of the wording pale in comparison, I think of star everyday player. So who does that immediately lead to? Fernando. I don't think Manny goes anywhere. Bogarts isn't going anywhere. Now, pale in comparison, that's about if you're going to trade some big star on your roster right now. Like I said earlier, it could be acquiring a huge name to add to the roster. But if it's a huge name, they probably come with significant money, so you're probably getting rid of significant money going back the other way to make this work because the Padres are trying to sell the team. And the payroll is expected to be around the same where it was, which means not New York Mets Steve Cohen level, but over the CBT, but just not recklessly over the CBT. So I'm going to go to the chat here just to see if there's any names that are thrown out there that I haven't thought of where I'm like, oh, maybe that's a fit. Okay, we'll see. But by the way, before doing that, Nando and Manny in the WBC. Nando, this is the first time that he'll be playing in the WBC, I believe, because he was suspended the last time. So Nando, that will be must-watch TV. And I know there's Padre fans that are going to be out there, and they're not going to like that Manny and Nando are playing in the WBC. Focus on spring training. Focus being with your big league team, the team that pays your salary, all that. It's representing the Dominican Republic. And it's playing in a tournament that's the biggest stage in world baseball that there is. Because that is the World Cup for baseball. It's the World Baseball Classic. So you get an opportunity to be managed by Albert Pujols and play for the DR, like, yeah, you're going to take that opportunity. As they should. Injuries could happen playing for the Padres too. So I'm never going to sit here and be like, nope, don't go do that. Why are you doing that? Questioning commitment to the team. No, not going to do that. I want to see Jackson Merrill be on Team USA. Team USA, that's an interesting roster that's happening, by the way. I don't know how many people have seen the roster. No Padres as of now. I don't think there would be Padres. Or, well, maybe Mason Miller. If he's a Padre by that time. Nolan Arenado has been invited to play for Puerto Rico. Okay. He's played for Team USA before. Jarren Duran's going to be on Mexico. So what I'm seeing so far, no one at first right now, but I assume that they try to get Pete Alonso. But they've got Corbin Carroll in the outfield, Pete Armstrong, Aaron Judge. Merrill can't be a reserve on that outfield. I think he could. Gunnar Henderson at third, Bobby Witt Jr. at short, Bryce Terang at second. Paul Skeens as the ace, obviously. Will Smith, Cal Raleigh behind the plate, Kyle Schwarber DH. That's pretty solid. But I'd like to see the bullpen, your other starting pitching options. But, I mean, Mason Miller obviously will get an invite. And it's just a matter of, is he going to say yes? If he wants to do it, I assume the Padres would let him do it. All right, shout out to the great partners of the show, Gaglione Bros Famous Cheesesteaks and Garlic Fries. Their main location is on Friars Road. Check them out, link in the description. Great cheesesteaks, cheesesteak fries, garlic fries. They're inside Snapdragon Stadium. They are inside Petco Park as well. Breaking Tea. They've got Padres and Aztec shirts and sweatshirts. Click the link in the description. Great time now, obviously, to head over to Breaking Tea with the holidays coming up. They have sales that go on all the time. And they have a ton of different Padres shirts out there. So I'm sure if there's a big Padre fan in your life, you could probably find a shirt that they don't have from Breaking Tea. And then SeatGeek, code Talking Friars, $20 off your first order when you sign up with your email. That's not just for Padres games, but for concerts, other events as well. So use that to your advantage, trying to help you out there. Let's see the comments here. Of course, there's Dodger fans in here. They have nothing else better to be doing. Sorry for the late start. I know I scheduled it for, 6 p.m., and I didn't come on until 7. I scheduled that earlier today and then got stuck in traffic, couldn't access the StreamYard to change the time. And so, sorry about that. I came home and got on here and did it. Alex says ownership needs to be honest with fans and say they're cutting payroll, but they want the monster crowd, so they won't. Yeah, yeah. Ownership, they're not going to come out and say, "Yeah, we're cutting payroll," and they might not cut payroll, or it might be by a couple mil instead of 20 or 30 million, right? Because if they're expected to be where they were at, then yeah, you're not cutting very much. You're trying to fill those holes better than has been done before, or maybe not done better on paper than done before, but you're just hoping that a different combination of guys will do their jobs better and come through when it matters the most. Mike says AJ always wants to make a big splash, so nothing would surprise me. The problem is this team needs a lot more than one player for a big splash. True, they do need to fill multiple holes. And AJ wanting to make a big splash, what I don't know why that would be a negative. Why is that a negative? Because a big splash means you're acquiring a big talent, right? And don't you want the most talented players on your team? So I don't have a problem with him wanting to make a big splash. Isn't that his job, is to make the best roster? And I'm seeing this talk about the prospects and how bad the Padres farm system is. We don't know that. You can look at the rankings. People in baseball have a totally different view than people that rank these prospects do. Because guess what? Regardless of where the Padres are ranked, people want the Padres prospects still. So, yeah, I'm not worried about that. Well, here's one Padres fan perspective. David says, if we trade Tatis, I'm done being a Padres fan. The good news is they're not trading Tatis. A couple years down the road, that might be more of a different story, but right now, no, they're not trading Tatis. Definitely not. I made the joke earlier today that the Dodgers were just so scared of the Padres adding Dason or whatever his name is, Dason Acosta, that they had to go and get Edwin Diaz. They were so scared. It really does suck though, seeing what they're able to do. But it's not at the same time like we have Mason Miller too. We have a pretty darn good bullpen. It's not like we don't have big contracts. We do. There are other. Sure, you can look up and compare yourself, but you can also look down and compare yourself and feel, pretty good about where you're at as well. Because there's a lot of other fan bases that would be like, I'd love to be where the Padres are at and have the players that we have. Carlos, okay, I think people need to understand the difference between fielding calls and shopping Mason Miller. Shopping him is, we want to get rid of this guy. They don't want to get rid of Mason Miller. I assure you that. Fielding calls is just, yeah, teams are going to call about him because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, of course they're going to call because you try. A lot of these GMs barely sleep probably. So what's another 5 minutes going on the phone with AJ and asking about Mason Miller and what would it take? Trust me, these are not just jobs for these. They don't just, 9 to 5, all right, I'm done. Thank goodness. No, like they're thinking about this all day long. So these conversations, hundreds of conversations they're going to have this week. Yeah. Why wouldn't you think big if you're these other teams? And if you're the Padres with other teams, big players. Caesar says trading Jason Adam for starting pitching prospect and possibly an infielder. That I don't think that would pale in comparison to acquiring Mason Miller or acquiring Adam and Tanner Scott. Pale in comparison, I think, is a huge player, everyday player, star everyday player. In 25 years, Ben, you'll look back on 2022 and 2024 as the best opportunities San Diego ever had to win a World Series. I mean, I already feel that way. So, sure. 2024, I already feel like that was their best opportunity. Sean says, Ben, enough of the Padres speculation. The Dodgers signing Edwin Diaz is white hot topic. Let's talk about it. But I'm not a Dodgers show, so I was going to talk about the Padres stuff first. And Edwin Diaz, what do you want me to say about it? The Dodgers have a ton of money. They're an organization that obviously has run well, and they've won back-to-back World Series, and so players are going to want to go there. If you're a player, like, you want to win, right? And you get to be paid almost $70 million from them to do that. Yeah, why wouldn't you go join them? So I don't think there's a ton more to say. The Dodgers are going to be the favorites every year, and the Padres are going to have to upset them to go win it all. And what it's going to come down to is the offense showing up when it matters the most. Caesar says Pavetta to the Cubs for prospects. That doesn't pale in comparison to Mason Miller. All those players you mentioned are untouchable because no other team wants them. Yeah, you're hilarious. Other teams don't want Fernando. They don't want Manny. Of course they do. Ben, which current free agents of ours will resign with us? I think they could bring back Ryan O'Hearn. I could see them bringing back Luis Ariz if he has no market and the price comes down to them. But they're not going to go up to go sign Luis Ariz. Those are the two names that stick out. They're not signing Robert Suarez back. Dylan Cease already went to the Blue Jays. They're not signing Michael King. Michael King's going to go sign with the Orioles or the Mets or the Red Sox. I feel like that's probably where he would go, is somewhere there. So, yeah. Some of these comments about Adcock is hilarious. Carlos says the Padres need to trade me. They need to trade Ben. Yeah. I don't think I'd bring back a ton of value. Yeah, they're not trading Merrill. They're not trading that contract. They'd be crazy to trade Jackson Merrill. If they traded Jackson Merrill this offseason, yeah, that would probably warrant. Well, I mean, we'll see what the return would be. But that would really warrant a serious look at what what's AJ Preller doing? Do we need to check his brain? Is he okay? There has been some coaching staff news, and also Logan White, Padres senior advisor, director of player personnel. He was one of the scouts of the year. He retired, announced his retirement while accepting this award. So that's another big person under AJ Preller that has retired. Yeah, obviously had Schilt, and then he's with the Orioles, and then Logan White. Is he retiring, or is he just going to go join another organization in a different role? I would think he's actually retiring because he's been under AJ for a long time. He's been with San Diego since 2014. AJ started, I believe, December of 2014. So I don't think that's an AJ thing. Dennis Lynn said, what was this, yesterday? Padres are close to finalizing their coaching staff under Craig Stammen. Per sources, they're expecting to add Bob Henley as the third base coach, Kevin Plawecki as the catching coach, Ryan Goins, infield coach. Nick Punto, who helped coach the infield last season, is returning. There's David Macias, obviously, at first base and outfield. Ruben, Ben Fritz. There's the hitting assistants that I can't totally think of their names right now. Brian Esposito got reassigned. He's joining another part of the organization. As for these names, Bob Henley, I remember him being the third base coach with the Nats for a while, so there's the Stammen connection, familiarity a little bit there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you if he's a great coach or not because we're not in those meetings. We're not in the clubhouse there, so I don't know. But I do remember him from being the third base coach with the Nats there. Kevin Plawecki, who did he sign a minor league deal with the Padres? Invite to spring training, something like that, maybe. But he obviously had a fine career in the big leagues. Let me look at his baseball reference page. Yeah, he was with the Padres. It must have been spring training, minor league deal, something like that. Eight years in the big leagues, played with the Rangers, the Red Sox, the Guardians, the Mets. So, all fine there. Ryan Goins, former infielder. I know he used to play with the Blue Jays. Let's see. Maybe there was some crossover. I don't think so. Toronto, the Royals, and then the White Sox, 2019 and 2020. So, I mean, fine hires. I'm not going to, well, I mean, I can't judge the hire. Like, all I can say is these are guys that have big league experience. Bob Henley's been a third base coach at the big league level for some successful teams. Kevin Plawecki, big league catching experience. So great. Ryan Goins, infield experience at the big league level. Great. Nick Punto, same thing. Great. We're not going to be talking about them at the end of the year and be like, they're the reason why the Padres didn't get to where we wanted them to go. We're going to be talking about the players on the field. Did they score enough runs? Did they come through in the big moments? That's what it's going to be. So, yeah, that's really what I got is just we're waiting. There's talk about big moves, but I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what exactly those blockbuster moves or a couple of deals that would add up to be way bigger than previous trade deadlines that AJ Preller has pulled off because he's pulled off some pretty big ones. So, yeah. Pale in comparison to me is some sort of deal that would involve a star player that's on the Padres. Because I just don't see them acquiring Tarek Skubal. I don't see them acquiring Ketel Marte. Who else is out there? I just have I have a hard time believing that some huge player is going to come over to the Padres this offseason. But it's AJ Preller. So we should probably expect that to happen, actually. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks everyone for the time and have a great night.